Hey guys, my name is Henk, and about 10 years ago, I wanted nothing more than to travel around the world. I knew it was possible. I'd read all the books and travel journals, but I didn't think that I was the kind of person that could do that. However, in 2011, I decided to give it a go. And to my surprise, I didn't get robbed or lost. Not speaking a language was no issue at all, and I'd always find a job as soon as I started looking for it. The world became my playground, and I got to try all sorts of cool things. I walked across 4 countries, hitchhiked an entire continent, and took a bike ride from Holland to Istanbul. I also slept in a cave and got chased by feral dogs in Romania. And I also ate a raw egg, including shell, something I don't recommend you take up as a hobby.
Pretty good.
All the fears I had turned out to be completely wrong, and I would never have known how wrong I was if I hadn't made the decision to try something new. Imagine you're holding a mousetrap in your hands. It's small, but it bites. Now ask yourself, would you put your finger in there? Probably not. Well, today I would like to share with you the surprising benefit of trying something new. And because I want to practice what I preach, I didn't just bring an imaginary mousetrap. I brought an animal trap. Now, to give you guys an idea how powerful this trap is, I will sacrifice this pen. Watch. Hey. As you can see, it snaps a pen in half, like a freshly baked pretzel. Now, bear with me as I reopen the jaws of death. There we go. So, if I were to say, put my hand in there, that would definitely qualify as trying something new, correct? Ladies and gentlemen, for your entertainment pleasure. Yeah. Cool. Better not. Obviously, you can't put your hand in an animal trap. We all know that. But I promise you, by the end of my talk today, I will convince you all that you can. But first, I have an assignment for you. I want you all to think of something you've always wanted to do, but never have because you believe you can't. Now, at the end of my talk, you're all going to receive a card. I want you to write it on there, put it in your wallet, and keep it there until you've done it. But for now, all I want you to do is think of something you've always wanted to do. Take a moment. All right, I hope you've got something. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Now, what's the scariest question you can ask any long-term traveler? Why do you do it? Let me try to explain. I come from a family of 4. My father, my mother, my brother, and me. I'm the youngest. Now my father and my brother have both had their own businesses for many years, but I don't. I've always been known as the scatterbrain of the family, the one that doesn't finish anything. Here's me not finishing my sandcastle. Growing up, I quit all sorts of things. But when I turned 23, I had found the one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to become a Marine. And so, I joined the Dutch Marine Corps. But after about 6 months, it turned out it was way too tough. I couldn't do it. And so, you guessed it, I quit. Again, proving to my father, proving to everyone that I can't finish anything. Now, for a long time, it was really nagging at me. I didn't know how to deal with it. But about 2 years later, in 2011, I had an idea. I would reinvent myself as an adventurer. And that was the perfect plan because now I could prove to my father that I could stick with something doing these long journeys. I could prove to myself that I could endure hardship, something I couldn't in the Marine Corps. But best of all, I would be doing something different every single day, satisfying my scatterbrain. So that's why I started traveling. But even though I started out for these somewhat dysfunctional reasons, over time, by trying all these new things, I discovered a surprising benefit. Now, to explain what that benefit is, we all have to travel to the Tacoltan Mountains of British Columbia, Canada. A few years ago, I was working as a wilderness guide in these mountains. And working with these horses taught me about the concept of limiting beliefs. You see, at the end of an 8-hour ride, we would set up camp between the mountains. But before we would eat, we would first round up all the horses, unsaddle them, lead them into the meadows, where we would stake them overnight. We'd use a wooden stake, about the size of a baseball bat. We would hammer it into the ground, put a rope around the stake, and around the leg of the horse. So that way the horse would have a circle of grass that it could eat overnight. But what I never understood, why do these incredibly powerful horses not just pull out that stake? Why do they let themselves be imprisoned by a stick? I didn't get it. Well, it turns out the way they train these animals is when they're still very young. They tie them to the exact same stake. And for hours, the horse tries to break free, but it can't. And eventually, it gets so tired, so exhausted, it just gives up. It doesn't even try anymore. Now, the interesting thing is, when this horse grows up and actually becomes an incredibly powerful animal, you know what it does? It still just stands there. It doesn't even try anymore because it's become a part of the horse's identity. The horse believes, I'm not stronger than the stake. Now, ironically, you and I, we do the exact same thing. When we are younger, we have experiences. We can't do something. We're told we can't do something, but we simply fail. And as we grow up and become people with so much potential, we also just stand there. We tell ourselves a story that that's not something I can do. That's not possible for me. And that is a limiting belief. And often, like the horses, the only thing holding us back is in our minds. Now the question is, how can you change a limiting belief? How can you change something that you believe is reality? You do it by trying new things. You see, when I started traveling, I didn't see myself as the kind of person that could go on these adventures. I saw myself as a quitter. But over time, by trying all these new things, my adventures started getting bigger and bigger, and at some point, I'm not exactly sure when it was, I realized I'm not a quitter anymore. I started to see myself as the kind of person that could do these things. I started to see myself as an adventurer. Why? Well, I had all these new, small experiences backing up that new belief. And now, I finally felt ready to take on an even bigger challenge. I wanted to paddle the entire Mississippi River in a kayak, all the way from Canada down to the Gulf of Mexico. A journey that took me 110 days, covering 3,750 kilometers. Now, before I started, I sent my dad an email telling him about this big adventure I wanted to do. And he replied by sending me a list of newspaper articles of people that nearly drowned on the river. Thanks, Dad. Very helpful. But a few months later, when I actually started, my dad had changed his mind, and he decided to join me for the first few days. Now, it's incredibly hard to describe what a long journey like this is like. So I've created a short video for you guys to give you kind of an idea.
The Mississippi is one of the longest rivers in the world, and at first, paddling the entire river seemed almost impossible. The first weeks, I had to navigate through marshlands overgrown with wild rice and paddle through forests filled with fallen trees that made progress incredibly slow. However, eventually I got to the open waters, and not long after, the river brought me back to civilization, and there I faced very different challenges. There were giant logs
Pretty cool.
I just gotta fill up the chamber, I'll get the gates open for you, and we'll give you a green light.
Passing through them was like paddling through the gates of Mordor. Then there were dams, which forced me to carry my gear across long stretches of land. I learned quickly not to sleep on riverbanks because water levels went up overnight and I would wake up completely drenched. I shared the river with giant ships and found out that I was at the bottom of the food chain.
Is anybody out there? Don't hit me.
I was just hit by the biggest wave I've encountered so far. My hands are still shaking from the adrenaline.
And in case you were wondering, yes, there were alligators. But my boat was like an alligator itself, and that's probably why they left me alone. But at the center of it all was the always present kindness of strangers. People gave me food and water, and offered me showers and places to sleep. Some helped me by towing my kayak, and others who followed my journey online organized parties as I passed through their towns. One guy even bought me a new solar charger. And after I finally reached the Gulf of Mexico, a fisherman went out of his way to bring me back to civilization. During these 110 days, I discovered that the most important part of any adventure is the people you meet along the way.
When you try something new, you are never alone. As you could see during my Mississippi adventure, I was surrounded by the kindness of strangers. And I've seen that same kindness throughout all my travels. And I think that's because when you try something new, when you go out of your comfort zone, when you decide to change something about yourself, you inspire people. And people want to be a part of that journey. All you have to do is share what you're doing and not be afraid to reach out. Now, there's one tiny thing that I haven't talked about yet, and that's fear. When you try something new, it can be incredibly scary, as I'm sure you all know. In fact, I still feel that same fear anytime I go on one of these adventures. And that's never going to go away. But here's a little trick that you can use next time you try something new, and you feel like running back to your comfort zone, you feel like quitting. And that is, burn your ships. What do I mean by that? Let me explain. In 1519, the Spanish explorer Bandon Toastmasters wanted to conquer the Aztec Empire. Unfortunately, he was completely outnumbered, and his men believed it was impossible for them to succeed. So Cortés did something radical. He ordered his men to burn all the ships. And by doing so, he took away their option of retreat. Now there was no way back. So now they only had two options: either die or succeed. For 500 years, no one had been able to conquer the Aztec Empire. But Cortés and his men managed to do it by burning their ships. So, how can you burn your ships? Well, next time you try something new, consider telling your friends about what you're going to do. Or post your goals publicly on social media. Or if you really want to burn your ships, give a friend 250 euros. And every time you make a little bit of progress towards your goal, you get back a little bit of money. However, if you don't make progress, or if you abandon your goals, you lose your money. Now, if you want, I can be that friend for you. In my next adventure, I also want to burn my ships. I want to conquer a fear that I and nearly every other long-term traveler has, and that's running out of money. In just a few weeks' time, I'm going to go back to Holland, where I'm from. And from there, I'm going to walk all the way to Jerusalem, a journey of 6,000 kilometers across 13 countries. But here's the catch. I'm going to do it without money. I'm not going to bring my wallet. I'm not going to bring any kind of backup. So I sent my dad another email telling him about this new adventure. However, this time he didn't send me a list of all the ways that I could possibly die. Instead, he said two things. First of all, he said, knowing you, you'll be able to do it. And this was really important for me to hear because it means he no longer sees me as a quitter. He also said, do me a favor, take a credit card, just in case you fail. But I said, no, Dad, I'm not going to take a credit card because if things get really tough, I'm going to use it. However, if I don't take a credit card, if I burn my ships, I'll have no other option. And I know I will find a solution. I know I'll find the resourcefulness to come up with a way. So that's happening in a few weeks' time. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more in a minute. So at the moment, I've been traveling for 6 years. And a lot of my beliefs about what I can do, what I'm capable of, have changed. So do I still have limiting beliefs? Yes, more than I can count. The point is, I now know how I can change them by trying new things. In fact, just a few months ago, I was here in Ireland at a show that explored the limits of pain. Now, the performer, he would do all sorts of stunts that stretched our belief of what the human body was capable of, the pain level, the pain tolerance that it could withstand. And at the end of the show, first he would barefoot walk across broken glass. He would take a chopstick and break it on his throat. And at the end of the show, he would take his hand and put it in an animal trap. In fact, this is the exact same trap that he used. You see, after the show, I was talking to him. And at some point, he got a smirk on his face and he said, do you want to try it? I said, no, I can't do that. But as soon as the words left my mouth, I realized that's a limiting belief. And it reminded me of what my travels have taught me. Even though I might not be able to do something today, I can become the person that can. And the same goes for you all. Even though you might not be able to do something today, you can become the person that can. At the beginning of my talk, I asked you all to think of something you've always wanted to do. Maybe it's writing your own book, starting your own business, or perhaps it's eating more healthy, exercising more regularly. Or maybe it's joining Toastmasters and standing in front of a lot of people giving a speech. Whatever it might be, I want to challenge you all to start trying new things. Because the benefit of trying new things is that you can change your beliefs. You can change how you see yourself. Now, as I mentioned, it's going to be scary. You want to quit, like I did so many times. So consider burning your ships. And last but not least, when you try something new, when you decide to change something about yourself, you are never alone. People want to help you. And now it's time for me to try something new. But I'm going to need your help, ladies and gentlemen. 10, 9, 8, 7, whoa. Let's try that one more time with a bit more enthusiasm. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go! Oh! Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Still working.